been trying to listen hard in this debate because I don't want this to be a mudslinging cartoon debate, but one in which we really try to engage issues. And so rather than rebut, I'm going to try to seriously engage some points that have been raised here. I agree, by the way, that morality is not in any way the special province of religious people. I completely agree with that. I think morality is a universal phenomenon, but I think it is a universal phenomenon that cannot be given the easy explanation that Dan gives. We evolved. Wait a minute. Does any biologist believe that we have in a serious way evolved over the last 5,000 years? No. Biologically, we have not evolved. Culturally, morally, socially, institutionally, we're different. Biologically, we're very much the same as Homo sapiens was 5,000. So the word evolution now has been transmuted from a biological meaning, and it's been put on a moral high horse. I want to suggest something different. No, human beings are not in some fundamental, natural way better now. In fact, our weapons of mass destruction in some ways have given us a vehicle to be far worse. Yes, it is true that we have representative democracy, and we have the abolition of slavery, and we have the equal dignity of women, and we have the compassion as a social virtue. And you know why we have those things? Not because human beings have evolved. It's because you're living in a Western civilization shaped primarily by Christian assumptions. How do you know this? Look at an example. If there's a famine tomorrow in Rwanda, you can be fairly sure that all the European countries will rush to help, send bags of food, send volunteers, Doctors Without Borders, and so on. Now, there are other rich countries in the world. They will observe, but do nothing. And why? Because they were raised with the belief I was kind of raised with as a kid, which is an Indian proverb, the tears of strangers are mostly water. Which is to say, to some degree, you look out for your own, by the way, a sound Darwinian principle, but you don't necessarily have any common ground with strangers who don't share anything with you. So the point here is, even the European countries that are secular will act in a Christian way. And why? For the reason given by Nietzsche. You can kill God, but you still, at least for a time, have a Christian civilization formed on Christian assumptions. It was those same assumptions that produced the only anti-slavery movement the world has ever known. It was the Quakers and the evangelical Christians who said we are created equal in the eyes of God, and therefore no man has the right to rule another without consent. All right. I want to now say a word about, well, just a word about toxic religion. Because that was really the main thrust of Dan's opening presentation. We need to have this education because young people need to learn about toxic religion. And all I'm trying to argue, and I haven't seen it really contested, is that religion is greatly blamed for things, even today, that have very little to do with religion. Oh, but what about the Israelis and the Palestinians? Oh, what about the Shia and the Sunni? What about Northern Ireland? What about in the Balkans? What about the Hindus and the Muslims in Kashmir? Okay, what about those people? Why are the Israelis and the Palestinians fighting? Are they fighting about religion? Are the Israelis saying Moses was a greater prophet? And the Palestinians, no, it was Muhammad who was the greater prophet. No, they are fighting over land. Why are the Hindus and Muslims fighting? They are fighting over Kashmir. In Northern Ireland, they were not fighting about transubstantiation or the Eucharist. They're fighting over which group gets to rule that country. They're fighting about self-determination. So I'm suggesting that one of the problems in this debate, I'm not saying that Dan is incompetent in his field, he's extremely competent. But I'm saying that in this new atheism, we have all these guys from Dawkins to Dan to others who are wandering far outside their fields where they know very little and making authoritative pronouncements about theology, about history, about Christianity. Christopher Hitchens in about 3 lines disposes of Anselm. Sam Harris, biology major, takes on Aquinas in a paragraph. I mean, this is intellectually embarrassing. And I think what it reflects is ultimately an atheist bigotry that is really not willing to take religion seriously. So my goal in this debate has not been ultimately to make the proof for the existence. I said I'm not proving anything. But I am saying that I want to suggest to you that there are serious arguments deriving from history, philosophy, and science that make the case that we should take seriously what most people from most of human history have taken seriously, and even now. So ultimately, this provincial, you may say, northeastern atheism of the academy that snickers at the whole world as being a bunch of idiots, I mean, is this the kind of elitism you want to have in the university where you don't take seriously the way other people experience the world? I mean, consider religion. Let me give you an analogy and I'll close on that. Let's say, for example, I was accused of a crime. I'm accused of killing somebody. I know I didn't do it. I come into court and Dan produces 5 pieces of evidence that say, here is the external evidence that you did it. Now, am I supposed to agree with that evidence even though I know I didn't do it? In other words, my inward experience is of innocence. The external evidence as laid out is in front of me. All I'm saying is religious people experience the world and experience God as very real in their lives. It's no answer to them to say, well, we can find a guy who saw a UFO. Well, you produce 2/3 of people on the planet who see UFOs on a daily basis since the beginning of time, and I'll take those people seriously. So I'm suggesting that academically, we shouldn't think ourselves superior to everyone else. If you approached any other subject like race relations, imagine if I started making jokes and producing little quips about slaves with funny names and so on, you'd be appalled. And if I said that should be required teaching in the curriculum, after all, people have had very interesting attitudes toward race relations over the centuries. This is not intellectually serious. So to answer Dan's question, I agree with the spirit of his proposal. I just don't want him to be the guy doing it. Thank you.
Well, we will begin our question and answer session. Is there an extra mic for the members of the audience? The other one was intended for that. Those of you who have questions for either or both of our debaters, please come up to one of the aisles and a microphone will be made available. And once again, please ask a question and make it brief. Thank you.